Hi, I'm Nicole, and I'm going to share my journey of transformation from mold illness, mast cell activation, candida, and just chronic stress.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be joined by Nicole, who has a beautiful story of healing and continued transformation. She was dealing with things like mold sensitivity, mast cell activation, digestive issues, candida, and I'm sure other things that went along with that. So welcome, Nicole. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here too. It's so nice to finally meet you after taking your course and watching you on Instagram and listening to podcasts and all of that. It's just a treat for me.
Oh. Well, we are here to highlight your success story because I am finding that more and more people are starting to believe that these conditions like mold and mast cell actually have a nervous system component. And when they hear people like you describe your healing process and how much nervous system work played in that, it's really spreading this knowledge worldwide to change the way that we approach these chronic conditions that for many they went decades without knowing that there was a solution. So why don't you start us off by just telling us telling us your story, the way that your life was affected, the things that you had, and eventually how you ended up doing nervous system work to help with that.
Sure. So it started in 2019, and my onset was migraines. That's how it presented. They would wake me up in the middle of the night. They'd come out of nowhere. I have no history of migraines. I've never had one in my life. And then just all of a sudden they started happening. And that started me down a path of trying to figure out why these were coming out of the blue. And because I have a history of colon cancer and therefore had to be on hormone replacement because of what happened during treatment, there was this long winding road of thinking that hormones had something to do with the migraines. And so I saw naturopathic doctors. I drove probably 8 hours to see a specialist down in Southern California. I'm in Marin County. I was really at my wit's end. I'd seen so many people, and they really just kept messing with the hormone piece of it. So estrogen, mostly, because estrogen can be tied to the mast cell piece and can be tied to migraine and inflammation. And so there was this long trajectory, I would say a year, of trying every single hormonal replacement practice that you could possibly think of, from creams to patches to pellets to everything else. Nothing was working. The migraines were not going away, and in fact, I was getting worse. I went from having migraines to having heart palpitations, anxiety, suicidal depression, insomnia. I had gastric issues. I had this weird spasm that would happen, and it morphed into seizures, and I would black out. And I lost about 30 to 40 pounds in about 3 or 4 months. I stopped eating. It was just this awful situation. It just sort of morphed and rolled into probably 30 different symptoms, and all the systems of the body were affected. And so then there was this trajectory, and this is all during COVID, by the way, because 2019 was the migraine escapade, and then we rolled into 2020 and shut down, and there's a lot that came from that as well. My mother had to move in with me. I couldn't take care of my child. I'm a single mother and an entrepreneur. I run my own business. I actually work in wellness and fitness and health, and I'm a yoga teacher. So it was such a weird situation. And so then it was this trajectory of I had to find the right doctor to help me find a diagnosis, because everybody would just silo me. They'd send me to the cardiologist, they'd send me to the neurologist, and they would send me to, another specialist, the migraine specialist, etc. I went to several women's doctors, like gynecologists and all of that. Yeah, none of that resulted in any kind of clarity. And I wound up in the ER several times at multiple hospitals over that time. It was really, really dire, really dire. My entire life was disassembling, and I didn't even really recognize myself anymore. I went from being this very capable, entrepreneurial, single mom, very powerful, always adventuring around and traveling and doing what I wanted to do and having a lot of empowerment in my life, to being bedridden. I couldn't drive. I couldn't take care of my child. I couldn't work. I just wasn't a functioning adult anymore. And it was almost like this weird feeling of my life slipping through my fingers. And I remember there were certain times that I was like floating above myself watching it. And it just didn't make sense how I went from A to B in such a short amount of time. So I kept the search up, but none of the doctors, and I would say I saw naturopathic, functional, and all the different like conventional practitioners as well. Nobody could diagnose me. And there was this sense of all of a sudden that I felt really hopeless, like, oh my gosh, I'm really on my own for this. Like, none of these professionals can diagnose me. I had all of this, also a lot of messaging that it was me, that I had an anxiety disorder, or I had some sort of depression, and that I needed benzos, or I needed some sort of SSRI or antidepressant. And I knew inside of me that wasn't right. I knew it wasn't right. I knew that there was something causing all of this unraveling. And so I took to my sofa because I didn't know what else to do. By this time, I'm on 30 different meds. My kitchen table is covered with supplements from all the doctors who kept trying to bandage me up, basically, with what they thought it was. And I just listened to podcasts all day long. That's all I did. I would walk when I could for hours, or I'd sit on the couch and listen to podcasts. And I finally came across Dr. Neil Nathan, who's this wonderful physician who talked about everything that was going on for me. And I had this sort of light bulb moment that, okay, maybe it's this mast cell activation, and maybe it's mold that's causing all of this, because none of the doctors had mentioned that to me. So I took he had talked about these tests, the urine test that you can do to test for mycotoxins for your body, and then the test that you can do for your living space to see if it's coming from inside of the space. I ordered them, paid for them, and did that on my own, and both came up super high for mold, and I knew that this must be it. So I took those findings. I had videos. My mother had taken videos of the seizures and the things that were going on for me, as a way to share with doctors when I'd go to every new appointment, have to explain my story all over again. And I sent him a very long email with the videos and asking for help, basically just asking for help, because I was really at my, it was pretty bad. And he came out of retirement and he met with me for an hour, and that just basically changed the course of my treatment, because all of a sudden I had a diagnosis. I knew what was wrong. I knew what was happening. I had this wonderful doctor who came out of retirement to help me and who was a specialist in this area tell me that it was treatable, that there was a way to get well from all of this. And he was the very first one to mention nervous system healing to me. He did right away. He said that would be 50% of my treatment. At that time, I couldn't hear that part. That part didn't make sense. I know you probably can relate to this. It's like you can't hear it. And I did buy the training, though, that he told me to buy. It's just that it didn't land. It was the Gupta training, and there's nothing against it. It just didn't land. I just felt like I was saying words. I didn't feel any kind of relief from that. And I worked with several practitioners after Dr. Nathan, people that were trained by him, and kept trying with that. It didn't work. And then, of course, all the supplements and the meds, and I wasn't making a lot of progress. And then over time, I kind of got at my wit's end again. I was like, I'm at my wit's end. I'm working with these practitioners. I was completely broke by this time. All my money was gone. My business had folded because the pandemic shut down all the yoga and fitness studios that I worked with, and I'm a consultant in that industry. So I lost my home because I'd moved out of it. I'd given away all my things. I didn't have any belongings. I had no more money left to spend on doctors and supplements and all of these things again. I had some support from my family, but I think they got to a point where they didn't understand it anymore, so that was tough. And then my ex-husband was taking care of our child because I really couldn't. And somehow I ended up, when I was visiting my daughter, at this place in Marin that was on hip camp, because I was at this place where I felt like I couldn't be around any certain types of clothing that had been in certain houses, and I couldn't be in certain houses, and you couldn't use certain cleaners around me, and I was in this very awful state of feeling like I was going to have to live in my car, or I was going to have to camp. And it was this awful feeling of being so out of control. And I ended up staying in this person's, they were this wonderful couple who lived out in the country of Marin, and they had this sort of she shed built, and I stayed there, and she came out to talk to me, saw that I was cooking my own food outside, because I used to do this weird thing where I'd cooked my own food in a stove that I had in my car. And she's like, well, what's your story? And I told her a little bit about it. And she says, you need to talk to this other woman who stayed here who had mold like you do. And she went through Primal Trust, and that really helped her. And it must have been like the right time for me to hear it, because I signed up with your program probably 4 weeks after I had that conversation. Wow. Yeah. After thinking for years that nervous system healing would not help me, because I had tried it, like you say in your podcasts. And so many people have that experience. But I had spoken to this woman who had done your program. Her name was May. I'll never forget her. And she's like, yeah, I did DNRS. I did Gupta. I didn't have a lot of, help with that. But then when I did Primal Trust, it really changed everything. And I can't really explain to you how it works, because maybe, you're really fearful of everything that's around you right now. And that's very common. She's like, all I can say is just do it, because it will change the way you feel about your environment. And that fear response doesn't have to be there, which at that time, I cannot explain how it didn't register. That part just didn't, I was so outward focused of everything that was hurting me or causing these sensations inside of me, or making my life smaller, and how out of control I felt. But I must have been it's hard for me to go back to that place, but I must have been in a really desperate place, because I signed up, and within a couple of days, it was so interesting. I felt like I could be normal again. Like I used to make my child change her clothes before she got into my car with me, like weird stuff. And within a couple days of doing the presencing, the ABC method, which was life-changing, it was like a little lifeline back to myself. I could go into her room, and I wouldn't go into her room before, and I could help her clean it, and I could have her come out with her clothes and get in my car and not freak out. And that was huge.
Yeah.
And as I say all of that, because little memories of that come back to me right now, because I'm further away from that period now, and I feel so sad for that girl, or that woman that I was, It was awful. But, Primal Trust has really helped me in a lot of ways, and so I do talk about it a lot, because I think many people in my situation don't really understand. It's like it doesn't register that part, that's the lifeline out of all of this. Not that she won't have to do castor oil packs and sauna and yoga and walking and have joy in your life and community and purpose and all of those things, and you'll have to get back into normal life, and you might have to take some supplements. That's maybe all part of your process. But to not incorporate this part of the body-mind, you cannot fully heal from the situation. And so it's been a huge impact on my life. Huge.
I love that you say so we have an exercise at the end of module 1 of Primal Trust that she's talking about, which is this pattern interrupt, where you become aware of your ruminating thoughts or the scary thoughts, and you interrupt it, and you just find a present moment. And you said within a few days this changed you. Like, how do you think that happened? Like, being so severe, what is that? What is it that changed?
I don't know. I actually put a video. I looked back at a video that I put on Instagram, and I look even different in my video because I'm actually smiling, which I didn't do very much during that time. All I can say is that I realized how much my mind was spinning forward all the time. It was always planning, always fearing for the next thing, always trying to figure out how to keep myself safe. And so when I use the pattern interrupt, and I do have to say that, like, when I first started practicing that, I probably did it like 30 to 50 times a day, because I would catch myself so many times in this forward leaning loop of trying to, it's that hypervigilance response that I was very much in. And now I realize this, I was very much in hypervigilance way before I got sick with mold. Oh my God, when you start doing this work, you start to realize, oh, this was brewing so long ago. I just thought it was my personality, So yeah, in the beginning, those first couple days, I was probably doing that ABC, that pattern interrupt, 30, 40, 50 times a day. I would do it in the car. Yeah, so I had results kind of right away because that pattern was starting to break a little bit, and I was able to be more in the moment and stop that stress response that was chronic. It was chronic. Yeah.
And I love, a lot of people think like they have to do these crazy long brain retraining practices in order to change. And what she's describing is our pattern interrupt tool, which is like 30 seconds. Like it's not, a 15-minute brain retraining practice that she did 30 to 40 times a day. It's a simple neuroplastic redirect of the brain back into the present moment, which is looking at truth versus thinking about all the things that could happen or all the things that did happen. And so I hope that the listeners are like, yeah, she was doing brain retraining, but it was a simple, conscious choice over and over and over and over to basically dial down that amygdala, the threat response, which immediately starts to change the biochemistry through the body by shifting the input to the hypothalamus. So tell me about your symptoms as you made that quick shift. What happened with symptoms?
So with symptoms, I noticed a lot more of my anxiety level decreased a lot, that I wasn't as anxious, that I was able to make eye contact more, driving got easier for me, doing simple things like going grocery shopping got easier for me because there was a time where I couldn't do that. Sleep got better for me. Like I said, it sounds like a silly thing to say or sort of a small thing, but I actually started laughing and smiling more, And I went a while without doing that. And my capacity got, like within those couple of days, I understood that I could sleep in other people's houses and that I would be okay. It's sort of like, I think the biggest thing, it wasn't like individual symptoms so much, but the anxiety level just lessened so much more. And I was able to actually be in people's living rooms or be in a bedroom that wasn't mine with sheets that I didn't wash and cars that weren't mine or grocery stores or places of business that weren't mine without having that full-on anxiety and fear response. It's like that part quieted down. And so then the Nicole I was before came more forward. That person I remembered, who's really inside of all of us gets buried, Yeah.
So tell us more about your journey and how your actual mast cell situation shifted, because a lot of people are like, but mast cell is very real and it's very debilitating. And walk us through what continued to happen to actually shift your true mast cell response.
Yeah. I would say that's taken longer, and I still do. I am still challenged with mast cell activation. I still have a histamine response that goes on. But I would say the symptoms, and that's primarily, I should be really clear because mast cell activation can encompass a lot of things. But for me, it's mostly a histamine response and reaction to food kind of situation. But I no longer had the migraines, which were part of the mast cell activation. Digestion got a lot better for me. Sleep got a lot better for me. And I was able to have some of these histamine symptoms without reacting to them, without creating a story about it, without searching for the reason why it was happening to me. So it sort of calmed down that whole analytical response that was always running in the background, trying to protect myself from whatever it was I thought that caused whatever was happening now. And so I guess that's really, it's been my response to the symptom more than the symptoms itself, but I've become much more functional. Before, it used to, like, I can remember days where if I ate the wrong thing, took the wrong med, went into the wrong place, or had the thought process around all of that that would create that mast cell response, it heightens it. the entire day I would be in bed. I'd be completely non-functional. These days, I go to yoga. I'm practicing Pilates now. I just started learning that. I actually I work at a Pilates company. I'm working again. I have a full life. I hike with my daughter and my ex-husband and my friends. Again, I couldn't do any of that. And that is part of the mast cell response. So mast cell activation is a huge, it encompasses so much, you know. So I would say that it's definitely brought down the response in a way that's extremely meaningful for me, for my functionality. Do I have work to do still? Is there still some things going on that I am challenged with? 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think it's important for people to normalize the process, and that's why I like doing these interviews that aren't the perfect outcome, but they're along the way, because they can show that even with the condition, you can live a normal life.
Yeah.
You can live a full life. And, you know, there's a part of us that's like, no, I need it to completely go away to get back into life. And that's just going to limit you. And what I love what you did, Nicole, is you took the wins and you started living life. You started living life. You got back into the work. You started exercising, and you aren't waiting to be perfectly recovered to say that you have that, to be willing to do a success interview, right? Like, you realize that what you are doing is a success, that you can live a life and recover, and that sometimes our health journey still has teachings. There's still places where maybe the immune system has a heightened response because there's still emotions in there that you're metabolizing, or reactions to life that you're still getting into. And it's a journey that you've chosen to embrace and continue your transformation on. And I've been watching you on your Instagram, continuing to embrace your transformation. Even after having this initial recovery, you're still utilizing the experience as a catalyst for your internal growth, which is beautiful.
Thank you. I do think of it that way now, and it's for me, it's a very positive way to frame whatever I am challenged with. And I have found that through your level too, which I got to do a part of it. I had to put it on hold for a bit, but I like to reframe it that way, that all of this is a catalyst, because it's uncovering a lot more than I thought it was going to be. And I'm here for that. I'm here for things to be different. And if this is the way it's manifesting for me, okay, that's great. I'm here for the journey, you know?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Sometimes our body is just, it has things to help pull us into looking at how we're thinking, believing, living, to help us continue to evolve in a way where we might not if we're just comfortable. And we can get by with resisting people or reacting or fearing. Some of us don't get that luxury to just bypass this human life. We are reminded by our body that there is a misattunement still to be found and to meet. And I love that. I am so grateful, you know, for my body that wants me to feel wholeness and love and complete inside. It doesn't want to just have this life be a bypass and, you know, distraction and dissociation. So, yeah, I see you on that path.
Yeah. It's amazing. You had mentioned, because I've listened to a lot of your podcast interviews, you mentioned how it's like this sort of an unraveling back to yourself, or a journey back to yourself. And I think sometimes it's hard to understand that until you're sort of in it, and then you start peeling away the patterns, the beliefs that have kept you in that spot, and to see who you really are underneath all of that. Yeah, it's deep, you know? And we think it's just, well, it was mold. It's like, well, no, there was so much more underneath that. This was just
tell us more. Tell us more. What for you was underneath the mold in the mast cell? What are things that you needed to see?
So for me, I realized that my life was I was always heading towards this, I think. I was always heading towards this complete and total burning down of whatever was before, to have this new beginning. Because my life leading up to that point was just a series of being in this chronic stress response that I called a type A personality, the achiever, the goal setter, the planner, the person who always wanted to do really well. That whole personality, I realize now, was just a set of beliefs and patterns that I've been in for a very long time. And then when I started looking back to how, through doing this work, of how that was created or how I came into that, you can see how it all gets constructed and how things are going to move on this direction to maybe an inevitable situation, which I did have cancer when I was 39. And I now see that as part of this sort of where I was headed on this journey. I now frame that in a completely different way, because long before the cancer, I was in the stress response and calling it my personality, or calling it, well, in my family, you get rewarded for being brave and for being strong and for having courage and sort of white knuckling your way through things. So just to see through all of that it's not just how I am, it's just a patterning and a belief system that I adopted over time. And then to find forgiveness for all of those things and the way that I was conditioned, because everybody was well-meaning in my life. But then this work of retraining myself into to having different beliefs and different responses has been so interesting. So that's what I mean by all that. It's so much deeper than just, I got sick from mold, or I had cancer when I was 39. You start to see the whole picture of how things are coming to be. And it's that process of coming back to who you are underneath all of that, and then reconditioning to the person you want to be, the person you've always wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And that's been really difficult at times and very eye-opening, and I didn't even know it was possible. Let's just put it that way. I didn't even know this was possible to sort of unearth all of that. And to say, I even say now, it's funny, I hear myself in my mind when I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I have fear responses just as I'm waking up in the morning because of things to do or things that are coming up or past patterning. But my new system is to say these affirmations in the morning as I wake up. And so I can catch myself in the moment of having the repetitive thought that I've thought for a very long time that I thought was my personality. And now I'm retraining myself to have different beliefs and thoughts. And at first it's very uncomfortable because it feels like not really, is that true? And over time I've realized, no, that's really what I do think and what I really do believe now, what's possible. And it's kind of going into that possibility mindset, or as you say, the creator, as opposed to somebody who's in survival the entire time. That transition is very interesting. It's an interesting transition.
Yeah, I love it. And people don't realize when they start this journey that they're literally reorienting their self, a different identity, that where you start to realize all the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors are actually perpetuating a deep stress response in your body. And sometimes it's been there since you were a child, so it's really familiar, and you just don't know that rushing and people pleasing and saying yes and fragmented energy and being brave, being held, all the things are literally a body just in a survival response. And eventually the immune system gets this tipping point, and it goes into a full-blown, cell danger response and mast cell response or cancer or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is that we can reverse the signaling, but it takes our consciousness to do it. And the tools are there to help us to become more conscious so that we can decide and choose and think differently.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the beauty of this. I don't think people understand how powerful it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just
so hopeful.
With some friends this weekend, I was telling them about the tools we use for these very real conditions. And I'm like, what? That breathing and that visualization helps autoimmune conditions. Well, surely the doctors would be giving that out if that actually worked. Why wouldn't they be teaching that, for these very serious conditions? They just can't believe that these simple tools wouldn't be taught by doctors if they were effective. Right?
Yeah. And that's the piece, that's where we are now, I think, you know? And I know that you're doing some of that work by educating physicians. And I just seriously applaud you from afar, because it's a missing piece in the medical system. And I could go on a tangent there, because a lot of us do have sort of PTSD from those situations and those interactions with well-meaning professionals.
Yeah.
And yet they were not, this has been missing. This whole body piece is missing. And I'm so glad that there's some awareness now around how critical, like how could we treat the body without treating this part of the body? Yeah.
It doesn't fit in their framework because they weren't taught self-empowering practices to heal from chronic conditions. They were taught algorithms of figuring out which pharmaceutical. So it's not their fault. It's literally just like the hardware for how a doctor figures out what to give you didn't have anything to say, oh, what does the patient need to do? Except for, I think, one of the fields is physical therapy, where, oh, they've got this body injury, so we'll send them to a physical therapist so the patient can do these exercises. And now I feel like it's a calling to teach the doctors the physical therapy for the nervous system, because their model can like, oh, yeah, physical therapy for the nervous system. It fits their little like algorithm.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of brilliant in a way, because they're thinking a lot about, well, as Joe Dispenza says, matter. They're thinking about matter as opposed to energy. But if you come to them with the matter part of things, the physical part of things, it registers, right? It's this metaphysical, the mind part, the energy part that can be difficult for people. And at the same time, I love that it's kind of coming more into the awareness, because it's so a part of the human experience. Of course it's a part of the healing experience. And yet it's been so segmented. Well, meditation's over here, nutrition is over here, and then, like whatever's going on with your body and the immune response is over here with the physician, instead of the marrying of two worlds that make up a whole human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really the hope for the future, is that these success interviews will help people to see a different way, and we're going to normalize this newer way of, really it's the original way of healing, which is holistic and self-responsibility, in addition to maybe like herbs and diets and movements that all work. And I love that. I want to switch gears, because one of the things that you've done that is really remarkable is that you've been able to get your physical health back, or you're working on it. And that's often a really hard piece for people, especially with mast cell or mold illness, is to get back into training and doing active things. And could you give us some insight as to like how you decided that it was okay to like start training your body and getting strong, and what that was like for you, and any tips that you might have for people?
Well, so I think for me personally, I've always been, I'm a huge believer, and I'm very passionate about physical fitness, and I have been my entire life. I've been a yoga practitioner for over 25 years, and I teach 2 forms of yoga as well. And then I work in that yoga and fitness industry. So for me, exercise has always been the catalyst, especially yoga has been the catalyst of well-being and transformation for me, and walking and hiking and being in nature. It's just part of my belief system. I'm hardwired into that. So sick or not, I know that that's the way through for me to start feeling whole again, at least a very big part of it. Because yoga was how I transformed at a very deep level in my 20s. It was this transformative thing for me. So I think inside there was always that belief of I need to get back to that, because I know that it's going to help me. And I derive so much pleasure from it, and I love it. And so it just started small. I just started with walking, and not for very long. And I'm like a really big hiker. I do really big hikes, like 10 to 20 miles, and that was my past. And so when I was sick, I could do little walks along the beach or little walks out in nature. And it would be like, 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'd have to rest. I had to sit on a bench and I had to relax. Sometimes it was just, my ex-husband was wonderful during this time, my mom. They would just take me, like wrap me up, and I would get in the car, get me off the couch or off of bed, and I would just sit on a bench outside in nature for a while. And I would like do a short little walk and come back to the bench. And they were so patient with me, and that really helped. My daughter too, she was amazing. They just knew that it was so important to me. And then over time, I was able to build more capacity. As I did more of the nervous system healing and I had success with the little walks and all of that, then I would just build more. And then over time, I got better and better at it. I did have, and I mean, this is just being totally honest, I did have times where I did too much, and then I'd end up back on the couch again. Because it's interesting, the brain is more ready sometimes than the body is ready. So in my head, I thought I could do things already because I was ready psychologically, but body wasn't ready for that much intensity. So I remember when I went back to a yoga class that I used to go to a lot before all this happened. Very heated because I'm a hot yoga teacher, Bikram yoga teacher. So this was like 102 degrees in there. So fun. Very vigorous though. But it was before I was ready. And so I had a huge mast cell flower after it. But instead of feeling like sad or discouraged by it, I just thought, I'm not ready and it'll come. So for now, gentle, be more gentle. We're not trying to do too much. So I just took baby steps a lot of times, and I also did things that made me worse sometimes. But instead of getting upset about it, I just knew that I just had to go slower, which has always been my problem. I usually go really, I rush and I go a little fast and a little harder than I should. So it's been a really great learning in so many ways, because being gentle and going slow has been a metaphor for a lot of things in my life, of where I need to slow down, be a little more gentle with my body, and then just move at the right pace for it. So yeah, it took time, and definitely there were times where I, ended up back in bed again. But I never got discouraged. I never did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, I hope this is hopeful for people who are like, but you don't understand, if I do anything, I end up back in bed. That happened, but you kept going and you just kept finding the sweet spot and building, and you're still building. And that's just how it is, and that it's possible to get your ability to exercise even with mast cell, and you just build the system. And yeah. What other things, as far as like how you lived your life, how that maybe you haven't touched on, or maybe you discovered as you started taking level 2, which is all about this identity reorientation, had to shift that were hard? Like, what did you have to let go of in order to have healing happen?
Well, that's kind of where I am now. I would say I'm still pretty much in that process of having to let go of. There's this thing that this belief that I've lived with for a really long time around scarcity and settling for less because I might not get what I really want. And so just do the thing that's here now, because there's this fear response about having what I really want and being impulsive around all of that. So that's been a belief that's guided my life for a really long time. So I would say right now what I'm having to let go of is the scarcity response of calming that part of me down and allowing myself to feel like I can have what I want. It might take time, but I can have what I want, whatever that goal is that I'm looking for or wanting for my life. It may take time, and also being quiet enough and taking a pause enough to hear inside whether it's the next right step. I never used to take that pause. Never. I would just act immediately and usually end up in some sort of mess, some sort of decision that didn't really make sense for me, or I was unhappy because it wasn't the right thing, but I'd acted out of fear. So retraining myself to, I guess you would call that more of an abundance mindset. I've had to let go of scarcity and fear around that, around rushing, around constant and immediate response to things, that has been a huge training for me. I started really small, just with text messages. So when people text message me now, I take, even if it's not even a big deal, I'm just training myself to not respond right away. I'll take 2 hours. And it's been this really interesting journey, because all these thoughts will come up. Well, you haven't gotten back to them, or they're going to be upset with you, or you're going to miss the opportunity. And that's the internal dialogue. So even just slowing down to hear the dialogue has been new for me. And then thinking to myself, is that really true? Is that really, the truth of the situation? And then thinking about how I really want to respond, taking time, and then responding later. So it's that pause between actual stimulus and response. So I think those two things have been the really big thing lately that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. And I'm really liking it now. It's been hard, to train. It's like training myself backwards to not act.
Yeah. Wow. I haven't heard anyone talk about that on one of these interviews, that text messaging thing, and it's brilliant. I can see it. I can feel it, the truth of it for myself, because I'm normally just trying to get it off my list because I get so many messages. But then what happens is it becomes a habit of over responding, and I think I'm going to practice that. I'm going to just let it, even the feeling of oh, it's building up.
Yeah.
I'm also building a muscle of my own time matters.
Yes.
And yes, they might want something. And I'll put my thing on silent and stuff, but I really like that more intentional, just building a muscle to let them wait, or even let it build up, and then time compartmentalize and, take care of them all between 3 and 4 p.m. or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're like me, you'll have the fear response. You'll have because I'm like you, I want to clean the inbox. I want to get the text. I'm like that. I just want to check it off my list and be done with it. Mm-hmm. But I've found a lot of times that if I let it sit for a little bit, my response is different and better and more aligned with how I'm feeling, as opposed to just whatever I'm going to text really quickly. So it is uncomfortable. It's super uncomfortable.
Love it.
But I like it now. I like that I'm more responsive instead of reactive.
Ooh, love it. Yeah, that's a movement. You should share that on Instagram.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, if you don't, I will, so you better take it. Yeah.
It sounds so I assume that everybody does that already when they're going through this work, but maybe they don't.
No,
so I will share that.
I think it's really good.
It's the way I've been training myself lately.
So, what's next other than completing level 2?
Yeah, I want to complete level 2 for sure. Yeah, I want to complete level 2 with you. I really enjoy your training. I hope at some point you offer training for people like me who want to teach what you teach, because I love it. I'm just it's so life-changing. I'm sure that's on your plate at some point, but it is part of what I would like to do with my life next. It's going to be that plus nutrition, and I'm really interested in transformative coaching. So it's going to be that's a big step for me right now, is moving into a different iteration of coaching, because right now I do business coaching. And I'm so looking forward to it. But again, instead of feeling impatient about it, I'm feeling like it'll all come at the right time, and I'm at the right place at the right time for all of it. So there's that. I'm really interested in going to Joe Dispenza's retreat. I would very much I've been listening to his meditations quite a bit in the last year, and they've been so helpful, and his books have been really helpful, and all the books you've recommended have been really helpful for me. And I feel a little bit insatiable around all of this, the physiology of it all, and so I also am very cognizant of that, and finding other ways to have joy in my life, as opposed to the constant learning, which is fun for me, but it's all in one subject. So it's must have a varied life,
Yeah, so, definitely. Mm-hmm. It's really important. I love that. And I think, obviously I'm a big fan of his retreats. I think once you've got a great nervous system foundation, it can be powerful. It's a good order of things.
Yeah.
And I expect that just as your immune system has continued to remodel its response, that will just continue to happen, especially as our immune system is always a mirror of our inner world and our perception of safety, our perception of self versus other, our alignment. And, as you keep remodeling that, I would expect that the mast cell would continue to calm down. I've seen that in many people, and sometimes they heal in stages and they'll get a healing and then they're kind of at a level for a year or so, and then they have another like deep internal shift, and then they, and some people it's quick, but it's all a trajectory as long as you are willing to do the work of knowing thyself and authenticity and questioning your beliefs and finding higher and better ways of meeting your needs.
Oh, that's so beautiful and so hopeful. Because I still do struggle with certain things, and I still struggle with the fix-it response of wanting to find the answer.
Yeah.
So that just gives me a lot more hope that more healing is coming for that. Yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome. And those listening with the fix-it response, it's a drive of the ego to look at what we need outside of us to fix the symptom or fix the person. But ultimately, it's just like, where can I get more authentic inside of me? Where can I let go of things inside of me? What beliefs put me in resistance or controlling? And so you're just constantly attuning more and more to your true self. And that's, instead of fixing it, it's just an alignment process, and just, reorient like, okay, actually what needs more alignment within me right now? And that will serve you well.
I love that. Thank you. That's really beautiful.
Well, thank you for this interview. It was great,
Yeah.
and I look forward to continuing to watch your journey on Instagram. And what was your Instagram handle, by the way, so people can follow you?
Yeah, it's wellness is the true wealth.
Wellness is the true wealth. Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
I wanted wellness is wealth, but it's taken. So wellness is the true wealth.
Love it. I love it. Well, thank you.
Thank you.